on our webinar. First of all, I would like to introduce a little bit of myself through a short video, and then we are going to see what is CLIL and why doing CLIL at a primary school, what are the ingredients for effective CLIL approach, how to plan CLIL, and which scaffolding strategies have to be used in order to facilitate content and language learning. And we will finish with the game to give feedback to me about the webinar. So let's start with a short video about myself. Okay, this was a bit about myself, and then we go into CLIL. I'm not reading the definition about CLIL because if you're attending the webinar, I think you know what CLIL is, Content and Language Integrated Learning. I really appreciated the definition by Doc Hoyle that CLIL is a flexible approach in which part of a subject or a whole subject are taught through a foreign language. And so students learn at the same time the content and the language. Now, I want you to use the chat. You have a chat in Zoom. And I'm wondering if you can think of the meaning of the I in the acronym CLIL. What does the I in CLIL stand for, in your opinion? I give you 1 minute to write something. Integrated, interaction, other ideas for the I? Integrated, inclusion, innovative, some other ideas? Let's see. Integration goes very well. Innovation, imaginative, invasive, intelligence, interaction, intercultural, Okay, here we have some ideas. Let's see which are my ideas. Inclusion, yes, because when you do CLIL, you have to include different learning styles, different cultures of the students that you have in your classes, and different languages. Innovation, because it's in a way it's innovative. It means with young learning starting to teach a subject through a language that it's not their mother tongue language. And what is important in CLIL is to keep together language, content, and thinking. They all go together. They have the same importance in CLIL. And in the following slide, we will see how. Interaction, because CLIL provide a content for meaningful and authentic communication. It's not the situation in which we are drilling, what's your name? My name is, when everybody knows the names of the students that are in the classroom. This is not authentic communication. Authentic communication means that I ask you a question or I do a task because I need an information that I don't have. And teaching a subject through another language create this context for real, authentic, meaningful interaction. Input. In content and language integrated learning, it's very important to provide meaningful input to students and make them cooperate and collaborate together. And for this reason, the teacher has to choose something that she likes. It's very important when you teach a subject through another language that you choose a topic that you like and that children like. Integration. Integration is a very important keyword in CLIL because the content has to be embedded in the curriculum. What does it mean? It means that if I have the water cycle in the science curriculum of year 3 in January, I have to do the water cycle in English, through French, the language that you want, exactly at the same time that this content is in the curriculum. I can't say, oh no, doing the water cycle in English is too difficult at year 3. I will do it at year 5. This is not CLIL. CLIL means that the content I'm dealing with through another language is in the curriculum at that time and for that age range. Interest, motivation. Some students that are not interested, motivated to do English, they don't like English or they don't like another foreign language taught at school, through CLIL, they are more motivated and involved. And you know why? Because the attention, the focus is on the content and the language counts. So they know they are free to try with the language, they are not assessed, they don't have to make correct at all costs, but they concentrate on the content and the language counts. Also students with the language problem, with cognitive problems, very often, I have experimented in my 20 years of CLIL, they do better in a CLIL contest than in a normal language class. And ICT. Because also in CLIL, you have to use web tools and app to support, again, content and language. Before going through some effective strategies that I have tried out through these years, I need you to recall your attention on some aspect of CLIL. Otherwise, you don't understand why it's important to use certain strategies instead of others. So we speaking about language acquisition and language development, we have to be aware that two types of languages exist. BICS and CALP. BICS is the basic interpersonal communicative language. I mean, the skills we need for everyday communication, for social interaction. And usually the task that we plan at the school to develop these BICS are less cognitively demanding. For example, we teach our students greetings. We ask them to repeat dialogues. They have to match pictures with words. They have to listen and do, listen and color. So from the cognitive point of view, they are not very high level, and the language is more linked to everyday language for social interaction. When we do CLIL, we are not dealing with the BICS, with everyday language, apart from art, maybe physical education. But for all the other subjects, we are dealing with CALP, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. That means we are dealing with the language of the subject. That means subject-specific vocabulary that's not everyday language. This is the reason for which CLIL is difficult, because the language is the language of the subject. It often is abstract, formal, more demanding, because if I study science or history, what do I have to do? I have to predict, I have to describe an experiment, I have to use the language of the science. If you think of experiment about floating and sinking, floating and sinking are two words that are very scientific. In everyday language, a child aged 5 doesn't use the word sink or float. They say it stays up or it goes down. So I have to teach them. Why do children go to school? Children go to school to learn the CALP, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency, the language of the subject, in L1 and in L2. For this reason, it's very important to be aware that at the age of, from the age of 6 to the age of 10, children are still developing the CALP in mother tongue. So it's very important not to have a 100% CLIL project, to teach a whole subject into English, but to choose the percentage in which we want to teach a subject, because children still need to do some activities to deal with the content in mother tongue in order to develop the scientific language of the subject in mother tongue too. So the two languages have to develop at the same time. Another important key concept we have to keep in mind when we plan a CLIL activity is the development of thinking skills. Most of the activities we do during normal language teaching are very much based on lower order thinking skills, remembering information, ordering, giving definition, checking understanding. They are doing activities, listen and do. And they answer to the question who, what, when, how, and so on. So they are very closed questions, and they are doing activities. We have to move very slowly, especially in CLIL, because in CLIL we are teaching a content through the language. We have to move to higher order thinking skills. So we have to move from doing to making with the language, to use this language to make something. And in this case, the questions change from who, what, when, how. We move to why not, how could we do this activity? What if in the world the sun disappears? So we have to promote the use of these higher order thinking skills. We have only 1 hour, so now I go quite quickly. What are the ingredients for a good CLIL planning? First of all, you have to reduce the teacher talking time. Teachers talk too much in class. You have to increase the student talking time. Here an M is missing. You have to make the input comprehensible. So it's very important to give much support to the students to deal with the language that they don't know. So the input has to be realistic, relevant, challenging, and this is very important. Slightly higher level of language than learners are able to understand. Because if the input is too easy, children get bored. If it is too difficult, you lose them. They don't follow you. So it has to be in the middle. You have to use a task approach or project-based learning, open questions, problem solving, situation in which children can share ideas, even through L1, if they don't have the language to do it through L2. Activities in which they have to report back to the class on researches, prepare a presentation, take part in role plays, give feedback. The teacher has to repackage information in user-friendly ways. So you have to check frequently if children have understood. You have to repeat, rephrase, use redundancy. So ask children to repeat a chunk of language. You have to break down the content into small activities. So not pretend to do everything in one time. So you take your content and you break it into small steps so that children can go easily through them and elaborate the content. You have to provide, this is very important, some teachers don't do it, provide support before the activity, during the activity, and after the activity. That doesn't mean that the teacher explains everything and does the work instead of the students, but the teacher is there. She prepares the materials through which the students learn. You can use songs, visuals, games to introduce the new vocabulary that children don't know, or chunk of languages. You have to simplify the language, but be careful, don't simplify the content, because the content is part of the curriculum. Children have to learn the content. If you think the content is too difficult, don't do CLIL. Choose another content that is affordable by the children according to their cognitive and language competencies. In CLIL, you have to use quite a lot of text, so you have to use appropriate text, short paragraphs, use subtitles, short sentences, and use a lot of pictures and diagrams to make content accessible. You can also use picture dictionaries and glossaries, but it's much better to encourage learners to guess and read, to guess the content and read by keywords instead of using the dictionary too much. Otherwise, they become dictionary dependent. Use a lot of visual organizer and provide always a constructive feedback to students. Scaffolding is the magic word in CLIL. You have to provide a lot of a scaffold for the language, for content, for thinking. I like this definition by Peter Mehisto of the scaffolding. Support structure that helps students to go further than they could on their own. So we have to provide this scaffold, this kind of help to students to work with the language, with the content. When you take away the scaffold, children will be able to produce the language without any more support. So if I want to plan a CLIL project, where do I start from? First of all, I have to choose a content. And then I have to think what kind of thinking is required by the children to explore the content. Is it appropriate to the age level? Do they have the cognitive skills to afford it? How can this content be represented from the visual point of view? So you have to make the content visual. I have to make the content contextualized where I live. So I can't transfer the project I have made in my class in a class in Portugal. It needs to be adapted to the context. Then you have to analyze the language. So what language is needed to express the meanings contained in the visual? and what kind of information sources we need to look for the information about the content. I like to adopt this 4P model from Massachusetts in technologies, from the MIT, to the CLIL planning. So before we talked about the I in CLIL, now we talk about the P of planning. So CLIL planning has to be based on projects, on passion. If you are not passionate about CLIL, don't do it, because in this case, you risk to do a very bad CLIL. So you have to be passionate. You have to make students to work and cooperate together. And it has to be fun. It has to be based on playing, creating games, have fun. When I do my planning, I follow these 4 steps. And now we are going to see strategies, practical example about each of each step. Tuning in, finding out, sorting out, and reflection. But most of all, the most important thing is start from the students. Teachers always, very often, I can't say always, very often they go into the class and they say, okay, children, today we're going to talk about, or open the book at page, or. It's always the teacher that starts the lesson. The most important thing in CLIL is forget you're a teacher. You have students in front of you. Start from the students. Start by activating their prior knowledge, because new concepts need to be built on previous knowledge and understanding. So in CLIL, I would say in every kind of teaching, but particularly in CLIL, it's very important to start from the student by activating their prior knowledge. Don't tell them what you are going to do. What's the project about? Start from them. How can we do? For example, we can start with a KWL chart. I can write on the board the word Europe, the word water, whatever you want. And this is for older students, 10 years old. And in the left column, they have to write down what they know about Europe. Oh dear, the teacher is asking me what I know about Europe. At the beginning, nobody is writing because they are not used to be asked to express their thinking. So now they have to think, they have to stop, they have to think, what do I know about Europe? Maybe there are 24 countries, 30 countries, I know some capitals, I know, and so on. The column in the middle, what I want to know, so they can write this in mother tongue, because when you do thinking, children need to use their mother tongue. They don't have, at this age, the language skills to write in foreign language. While in the third column, that's done at the end of the project, they can write in English because they will have learned something about Europe. So this is a chart that helps to reflect about your own learning process. So metacognitive reflection about the learning process. You use it at the beginning of a project and then at the end. This is much easier for little children. What can you see in the sky during the day? What can you see in the sky at night? They can draw instead of writing. To introduce, for example, the solar system. This is another activity, a cooperative learning activity. What does the word tree make you think of? It's a cooperative learning strategy called placement. You can search in internet and you will find explanation of this strategy. 4 children work together on the same big piece of paper. Each of them works in an area of the paper and writes down or draws what the word tree makes them think of. Then they share the ideas and they have to choose an idea from each of them and make a poster to show to the class. This is what I did in a class within a European project. We had to talk about the wolf to the other partners. So the children at the beginning were given a piece of paper. They worked in pairs, and they had to write down sentences about the wolf, what they already knew about the wolf. And at the end, we made a post, and they told me, "Oh, teacher, we don't need to do anything about the wolf because we know already a lot of things." I said, "Okay, don't worry." And I delivered some materials, effect files and games to discover more information about the wolf. And at the end of the project, on the right side of the poster, we wrote down all the new information they had learned. So they realized what they had learned. It's very important to have this visual metacognitive reflection on the learning process. And then we went to France for an exchange, and I asked the children, "Can we bring with us this poster to show what we learned to our friends?" And they told me, "No, we make another one. This is our product and we want to keep it for us." They were very proud of it. Again, to activate prior knowledge, another strategy can be brainstorming vocabulary. For example, in this case, I put the word insect in the middle. And then children gave me all the words that came to their mind in Italian or in English, didn't matter. If they told me the words in Italian, I translated them into English. And then we classified all these words in this word map. So we started from children or what children already knew, and it was a lot. But if you look at the map, some things are correct and some are not. In this case, the teacher hasn't to say anything to children. She just has to collect all the ideas they can, because this is activating prior knowledge. Some prior knowledge must be wrong, doesn't matter. Children will discover by themselves during the learning process if some prior knowledge was wrong or not. The teacher hasn't to say anything. Another way to activate prior knowledge is to show a picture. What can you see? What does the picture make you think of? And take into consideration that language in CLIL is not graduated, but it is functional to the content. So this means that you have to make children think in chunks, not individual words. Krashen says children acquire language unconsciously, focusing on the meaning and not on the form of the message. So don't worry if in CLIL you have to use the future simple, conditional, or whatever it is, because you can't wait to do CLIL until children have learned the grammar side of the language. If I do science, I have to use future tenses. So we have to work with chunks of language, give the sentence, and use and reuse the sentence. Now I give you an example through a short video. It's very important that the teacher is a good model for the students. I'm going to show you a video in which pupils have been given a fact file with pictures of animals. My friend Diana X is asking where each animal lives. She provides verbal support and encouragement. So the question was, where do animals live? And children are answering. What I want you to observe is how she interacts with the students.
Yeah.
In Indonesia.
Good. Yes, that's right. The snake lives in Indonesia.
Costa Rica.
Yes, you're very clever today. The snake lives in Costa Rica. The snake lives in the desert. Very good. The snake lives in the desert. Very good.
In Asia.
Yes, the snake lives in Asia. In Asia. Very clever. Good. Any more thinking?
In Australia.
Good. The snake lives in Australia.
Okay, let's go back here. So what is very important is to provide this positive feedback. She reformulates. Children did a lot of mistakes about pronunciation, doesn't matter. She reformulates in a correct way and she praises them. Well done, very good thinking. Let's go on in thinking. In order to support children to produce the language, we can give them these language frames. For example, here we have two examples of language frames for little ones. Where do animals live? A butterfly lives in the pond. A trout lives in, for example, I was wrong. So if the child says a butterfly lives in the pond, I can have adapt that either he doesn't know the language or he hasn't learned the content. So the language frames is very important because it provides support for the language. And the student have to choose the appropriate content. So I see all the names of the animal. I choose one. A fox lives in, and then I have to choose the right habitat, the right place where it lives. Instead of the word, for the very, very little one, I can use pictures of animals and pictures of habitats. I can ask also for assessment students to use the language frame to write down sentences. So it's also support for writing. I take away the problem with the language. The language is here. I want to assess the content in this moment. So make sentences verbally or in a written form that have sense, that are correct from the geographical point of view. The other one, the avocado is soft, was an activity about fruit and through the five senses. And at the end, the children had to make sentences using cards. I have packs of cards with verb, nouns, pronouns. So children in this transparent board, they had to put the card in the right order and then copy them, just a kind of support. What does it happen in this way? That the students learn the chunk of language. The is soft. In the future, they can say the cat is soft. So they can use this chunk of language and in different contexts, transfer to different contexts. This is a more complicated one. When I eat an apple, I'm eating the fruit of a plant. When I eat a carrot, I'm eating the root of a plant. If I don't provide the student with this language frame, they wouldn't be able to speak by themselves or write down a sentence like this. This is another kind about comparing planets. Jupiter is smaller than what else. Before giving anything to read, do a pre-reading activity. For example, this one is a true and false activity about Christmas in Europe. So before reading, they have to read the sentences and circle if they think the sentence is true or false. Then they are given the fact file. And what does it happen? That when you give them the fact file, they already know the content of the reading text. So they quickly go and look for the information and check if their prediction was correct or not. This is another activity about prediction. It was about hedgehogs. On the left, they had to finish these sentences in groups of 4, and then they had to share with the other groups in the class. Hedgehogs are compare their ideas and come to a final handout about fact file about hedgehogs. We can activate prior knowledge through true and false games. For example, this is a true and false game about the solar system. They had to cut sentences and classify them into 2 groups. And then Once I have activated their prior knowledge, we have to discover the content. And in order to discover the content, very often I have to read. So when I have to read, I have to understand globally, first of all, a text, and then being able to identify information. So I need to teach students to skim and to scan. To skim, it means you have to very quickly move your eyes over the text in order to understand the content of the text. Scanning, it means, again, rapidly cover the text and look for the information I need. You have to do a kind of gymnastic for your eyes. For example, a very nice strategies you can use is this. You take a text, you choose some keywords, the one on the left, rocky surface, red planet, moons, 687, atmosphere. You write these words on pieces of cards, on small cards. Then you give the text to the student individually, in pairs or in groups as you like. And then you start picking up a card, reading a card, and children have quickly to find the word in the text and underline the word. So you do this kind of gymnastic with the eyes. When they have finished to underline all the words, they can use this word to make a concept map about Mars. Concept maps are very useful. Here there are some examples. For example, this is without words, mainly with pictures. You can make a kind of flap book, you can make a kind of concept map like this, because graphic organizer provide support for the student to select the information I need to make the concept map, categorize information, summarize, explain a process, find similarities and differences, and speak about what I have learned. This is another one that I made on a paper plate about insect. Each child had to choose an insect and made a map. This is a Venn diagram to compare an insect and an arachnid. To scaffold speaking and writing, we can use sentence starters. So students have to finish the sentences. You can use experiments. Science is very good for CLIL because it's very concrete, visual. So these are experiments that everybody does at the school and can be very easily done in English. If you use resources from books, from internet, be careful to use very visual fact files, like this one that I've taken from this very interesting book by Osborne. Ask children to draw themselves. Don't use all these handouts already printed from the internet, from course book. Ask them to draw, to make things. This, for example, is a kind of a food chain that the children had to draw. And again, scaffold meaningful communication. Very often during art activities, we show a picture and we ask students, okay, now write 4 sentences about the picture, and then read the sentences to a partner. In this activity, there is no communicative purpose, only practice of language form. Do we want to make it more thinking and meaningful? The teacher showed the picture very quickly to the students and then take it away and asks, from memory, write 3 true things and 2 false things about the picture. Then read them aloud to see if other pairs or another classmate remember which ones are true and which ones are false. So in this case, the communication is really meaningful. Again, to support this content manipulation and speaking, we can ask students to prepare poster in groups and then to present to the others. We can use, here I'm going quickly because they are strategies that you usually use at school. You can use drama, because drama helps to memorize the specific language of the subject. This is a drama about the solar system, for example. This is a drama about the leaf, the parts of a plant. You can use a role play. So children can perform a food chain also with the body. You can use songs, so invent songs about, this was a song about the 4 seasons. Invent songs in which you put the content that the children have learned or have to learn. And of course, use picture books and non-fiction books to support the content you want to teach. Last step, couple of minutes and then I will finish. Sorting out. Sorting out is, first I have activated prior knowledge. Then I have created a lot of activities through which children learn the content in a funny and active way. And then we have to use this content to do something. So we have to organize what we have learned. So it's the time to play games. Children can create games. I will show you the game at the end. They had to search information about the bear, and then they gave the voice to this bear through this app, Blabberize. This I will show at the end. They can create word games. For example, this is a game that has been created by children age 9. You have to find the odd one in each group, but not only find the odd one, you have to also give the reason why it's the odd one. You can create board games. You can create this kind of word games. You can ask children to create quizzes. So ask children to use what they have learned to create games. I'm very fond of it because I think this is the best way to assess students, more than all the handouts that we give them, fill in the blanks, tick the right answer and whatever it is. Creating a game requires a lot of work for a student. They have to recall what they learned, they have to choose the information, they have to organize the information, choose the format and prepare the game. You can also create 3D models to show what you have learned to make this content visible. This is about history, this is the food pyramid, this is a gymnastic, this is the water cycle, the digestive system, the solar system, the cell, and I finish. I take, yes, I'm quite on time. I take other 3 minutes to show you a project about water. So how did I activate prior knowledge? I show this picture to the children and I ask, what do you see in this picture? What do you think these people are? Who do you think these people are? And I gave the language frame. So below the picture, there is the language scaffolding. I see, there is, there are, they are caring, I think they are. Where do you think these people live? Children gave their ideas. And then I show the picture to help them after the first ideas. And then I gave the solution. These children are from Cameroon. Can you see Cameroon on the map? Students were given atlas and they had to look for Cameroon on the atlas. And now it's time to think, what is Violetta doing in your opinion? Where is she going? They made their prediction and then we discovered that every day Violetta walks 9 kilometers to get water for the family. And how much water do you think Europeans use per day? And how much Africans? And it was very funny to see the answer from the students. This is the average of liters of water that Europeans use every day, and African. So children were shocked. And so Violetta uses 5 liters to wash her hands and body, 5 liters to cook, 5 liters to wash dishes, and 5 liters to wash clothes. And what are the differences between Africa and Italy, for example? So children were asked to record in a day more or less how much water they use. And then imagine you live in Africa. You have 4 buckets of water. Each bucket is 5 liters. What can you use the water? How can you use the water you have? Would you like to have a shower or washing plates or washing yourself or brushing teeth or cooking or washing hands. So children, or cook or washing clothes. Children were given these 5 buckets and they had to choose what to do in a day with the 20 liters of water. Before doing the answer garden, I show you the video about the bear because it's funny.
Brown bears are large mammals. They live in cool mountain forests in North America, Europe, and Asia. They live in caves in winter.
This is called Blubberize. This was the end product of a project about animals where we live. You always have to have a final product. Can be a game, a drama, or we decided to use this app and children had very much fun. This is, I told you that it's very important to use gestures.
The sun gives energy to the grass. The rabbit eats the grass. The big bird eats rabbit.
Okay, and this was the food chain represented by the body. I really believe that from the age of 6 to 10, the body involvement helps learning and fix this chunk of languages. To finish, I place in the chat, let me see if I manage from here to put in the chat. Okay, I put in the chat a link about this answer garden because I want to know from you. Now I go out and I go to the answer garden. I want to know from you an idea that you bring home from this webinar today. In the meantime, I go to the website and we can see the word cloud appearing. You just have to click on the link and give me a word of a strategy or an idea, a keyword that you bring home from this webinar. I had to run a little bit because I wanted to give you plenty of ideas. Maybe next time we can focus on something only.
It's okay, Silvana, because it was amazing with so many ideas, so many activities. So
I will give the presentation so people can go through again, and I will add my email if they need.
Silvana, can you post again the link for
Yes, I post again.
Please.
Okay, answer garden. I put the link. In the meantime, if you can read because I'm still sharing, Anna, if you want to read the questions.
I have here only one question. It's a bit long.
Summarize.
I'll read it because we have time while people are answering the answer garden. So last year, the school where this teacher is had an inspection on her years 3 and 4 of English. And this teacher was hammered by trying to involve the students with language 1, so with Portuguese, to gain confidence, sense of achievement, and grading usage. So he was told to speak entirely in English. He responded to the report from the inspection proposing the usage of a percentage of language 1, L1, that would be variable according to the student's evolution. So the question is it possible to think of a number in terms of percentage, I think, of L1 in ELT?
You have to distinguish because here there is, many people make a confusion between ELT and CLIL. Okay, they're two different things. When you teach English, so English language teaching, you can also speak 100% in English. It's advisable to speak as much as you can in English, because you are teaching the language, okay? So the inspector was absolutely correct. Speak in English as much as you can, and I would say not only during English language teaching, but during the whole school life. But when you do CLIL, as I explained at the beginning, when you do CLIL, you are using the language to learn a content that is in the curriculum. So you are using a language that is not the language you are teaching during English language teaching lesson. Is the language of the subject. It's completely, not completely, but 90% different because it's the language of science or history. So in this case, you can't use 100% second language. Otherwise, believe me, children don't learn the content and you are in big trouble because you're teaching the content. So in CLIL, usually, well, we have some experimental project in Italy where the percentage is 50% in English and 50% in mother tongue of science, for example, of the science curriculum or the geography curriculum. They do 50% and 50%, and already is quite a lot because then students are assessed on the content, not only on the language. Can you understand the difference? I don't know if I gave a clear idea what I mean.
I think so. I think so.
I think
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
Okay, so this Spector was correct. If you do CLIL, you have to be very careful, unless you do a kind of topic approach. But if you do a topic approach during English language teaching, then deals more with the language than the content. You understand, all the books are based on topics. They are not necessarily linked to the curriculum. It's something completely different.
Thank you, Silvana. Well, I surely learned much more about CLIL today.
Well, I have been working with CLIL for 18 years now, and I'm still learning. So in 45 minutes, the only thing that I have created, maybe it's a bit confusion, because at the beginning I was really confused, and I still am, but it's very important to read a lot about CLIL, to surf the web, go and see video about experiences in Europe, and
well, but you are very passionate about this subject, that's for
yes.
sure, and you share that with us.
Yes, I am very passionate with the CLIL.
So many wonderful strategies, like someone said. Yeah.
I think, Sonia, we have one more question. I think we have time.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
In the meantime, I refresh Answer Garden. Oh,
wow!
Wow!
So this teacher says that in the Portuguese public school system, we don't have CLIL as a subject. Sometimes we are asked to teach CLIL activities, and I don't really think of this as being CLIL, but as being more cross-curricular, isn't it?
Yes, the line here is very thin. I mean, as David Marsh says, there are CLIL is an umbrella term that covers a different kind of approaches, and so it can be cross-curricular. In fact, the collection of my activities in the Oxford book that dates back to 2006 was called cross-curricular activities. So in Italy, neither. We don't have a CLIL in the curriculum, in the national curriculum, but it's strongly advised. So there are different forms of CLIL, but again, it's different from English language teaching. It integrates it. One doesn't replace the other one. So if I do CLIL, doesn't mean that I don't do English language teaching. They support, but if you do CLIL, you raise the number of hours of English. You raise the exposition to the language instead of the 3 weekly hours. Maybe we have 3 hours per week in Italy from the age of 8. Instead of 3, you have 5 because you do science in English.
Yeah. Thank you, Silvana. I think we have more questions, right, Anna? Luis,
refresh again.
Yes, we have one more. Yeah. What do you say to those who consider CLIL an attack on the other languages?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
So what do you say to those who consider CLIL as an attack to the other languages?
Oh, well, I have to understand what does it mean, this attack to other languages. CLIL can be done in all languages. In Italy, we are very unlucky because in our primary schools we do only English. Only English is compulsory. In the past, we had 4 languages, for example. But let's consider that if you have children of different languages in your classroom, when they are learning Portuguese, they are doing CLIL. Because they are learning a subject through a language that it's not their native language. But the difference is that there is immersion in this case, because a child that comes from Morocco or whatever it comes and comes to Portugal and they has to learn science matter in Portuguese, in the outside world, there is Portuguese, so it is facilitated. But in a way, for these children, it would be very useful to use CLIL strategies to help them to deal with the language. In America, in the United States, more than in the United States, also in Canada, CLIL is not called CLIL, it's called the content-based instruction, and it was born to help all the immigrants to learn the subject through American language because they had big problems. And then again, CLIL, it doesn't mean that you have to use only English, but all the languages can be involved.
Yeah. And for example, in my school, not in primary school, but in the third cycle, which is from 13 to 15 years old, we have a project, a CLIL project in French.
Exactly. So, why not?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean now. The experience I showed was in English because I used to teach English, but it can be any language. Yeah. Any language. You can use all the languages of the children. When you do a project about water, if you have children of different languages, why not introducing words in those languages?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Including all the language in the classroom. Yeah.
Yes, all the languages. We need to give students the idea that all the languages are equally important because the languages are expression of our culture.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I think it's time. Thank you so much, Silvana.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I learned a lot, as usual. And I think that the point where we started, when you said what the I can stand for in CLIL, I think it was a great starting point, and your ideas helped me also think about what it can stand for and what else I can do with CLIL. Thank you so much. It was a very inspiring presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Silvana. Thank you on behalf of Happy and Happiness for joining us.
I hope next year to join you in Portugal.
Face to face. Yes,
face to face. I will be retired, so I will have time to come and enjoy your country and enjoy your country.
Yeah, please come back, say some of the participants in the chat box. Silvana, I invite you to join us in the end of the day in our closing session, okay? If you can manage to do it. Okay.
Yes, I can. I will.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, and Merry Christmas in the meantime to everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Silvana.
Buon Natale.
Buon Natale.
See you later.
later.
See you later.